1 Edward 1029, copy, threatening traffic.
Copy, moving route.
Edward 1029, if you could please respond to 2020 McNeil Street, Lakeview.
Copy. If you still have run on, get the ATO information first.
Welcome to Shooting Straight with Brad and Casey. I'm Brad Carlyon, your Navajo County attorney, and my partner is Casey Clark, our Navajo County sheriff.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
Our program this month is about law enforcement. In particular, May is National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Day on May 13th. And we want to talk a little bit about law enforcement and about the Law Enforcement Memorial, and just let you know what our law enforcement is doing to make our quality of life here in Navajo County that much better. And Casey and my two guests is Commander Larry Parks with the Arizona Department of Public Safety and Chief Ron Wheeler with the Pinetop Lakeside Police Department. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
Larry, one of the first things I'd like to ask her, what are all those hash marks on your sleeve there?
Well, Sheriff, I'm glad you asked me that question. This goes back to 1977 when I started my career with the City of Coolidge Police Department. And for after that, it's for each 4 years of service, they let you sew one on. So I'm in my 9th one right now. In July of this year, I'll have 36 years on with DPS.
That is definitely a career.
That's
Wow.
definitely a career.
So, Chief, you only have 4 on yours.
Yeah, mine are just for each star you get one stripe. Not as fancy as his, but hey, it works for me.
What drew both of you into law enforcement? We'll start with you, Larry, since you got so many years in. Why did you become a law enforcement officer?
My father had associates. He was in the fire department business back in Coolidge at the Coolidge Florence Airport. Worked for the Air Force. So a lot of his acquaintances were also in the emergency professional fields. I took a look at both of them and what they did, and I was just something I always just admired more. Somebody that would put on a badge and a gun and go out and do the difficult task that it is that a police officer is asked to do, and that was something that I wanted to follow myself in.
How about yourself, Ron? You got some fire background too in there, if I remember right.
Yes. Back home, which is Canada for me, where I came from, I was an EMT firefighter for a number of years. When I immigrated down here to the United States, I started out working with Sheriff Joe in his jails as a detention officer. I was there for a few years, and just kind of through working with and seeing the other officers, it just inspired me to want to go into the sworn side.
So from a jail detention officer to a chief of police, that's quite a rise that you've had.
Yeah, to say the least. Yes, thank you.
In both of your careers, there's probably been people that you've known that have lost their life in the line of duty. Are there any that you personally known that have lost their lives?
The man that when I joined the Coolidge Police Department in 1977, the man that I took his place was a man by the name of Paul Young. He left our agency and went to work for the Coconino County Sheriff's Office, and I took over his badge number. My badge number was 12. That was his. In 1983 in Fredonia, Paul was shot to death by a suspect, and he ended up killing the suspect that took his life. But in the process, he himself was killed. He was the first man that I personally knew that was killed in the line of duty that was actually shot down.
Jeez.
You know, Larry, I didn't realize that, and 1987 is when I went to the academy. In 1989, I went full-time. I was a reserve. And if you remember, of course, Bob Varner was shot and killed right there in Winslow. And I took his spot. That was the vacancy opening full-time.
Yeah.
So,
and a man remembers that. A man remembers those things in your life.
So, well, you know, DPS, Department of Public Safety, they lose, over the years, probably lost more people than any agency in the state. I mean, every year, tragically, you guys lose folks.
The Phoenix Police Department, the last statistic I heard, and I just saw something on the news the other day about them because they were talking about their museum. They've lost 38 officers since their inception. But the Phoenix Police Department is literally 3 times the size of the Department of Public Safety. Since our inception in 1931, the Department of Public Safety, the Highway Patrol, which I'm a part of, has lost 29 officers. 21 of those have been involved because of accidents, because of collisions, officers that were hit by other impaired drivers or just somebody that loses control of their vehicles. 8 of our officers have been murdered, been shot. 3 of our officers have died in the line of duty in helicopter crashes or helicopter-related incidents. And then 1 of our officers actually died in a train car explosion. And this is they're in Kingman back in '73. So we lost our first officer back in 1958 down on Highway 80 outside of Dayton. And then the last officer that we lost in the line of duty was Tim Huffman in 2013, just outside of Yuma on Interstate 8, by a distracted driver, a man who was looking at his cell phone as he was going down the highway, and crashed into the back of Officer Huffman's car and killing him instantly.
Yeah. Well, Ron, I know that you've worked around the state, and I'm sure that you've had to know some folks or been in an agency possibly that's lost somebody.
Yes, I had 2 friends of mine that lost their lives in the line of duty. One was on his way back from Hurricane Katrina and had a heart attack. And then the other gentleman, Eric White, I worked with him as a detention officer for many years. Then he got hired by Phoenix PD, and he was murdered in a shootout a couple of years back. So those were 2 that affected me quite deeply. I was also a member of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Honor Guard for a number of years. So I've participated in my share, way too many, of officer funerals, but those 2 hit hard because they were friends.
Casey, in the last year, how many officers in Arizona have we lost?
Well, this year we're going to have, and the way the police memorial works is they go back and they do research. So, for instance, they forgot to put on the memorial William Dobson. He was from Pinell County, Arizona, the sheriff's office, and he was actually, his end of watch was on March 1st, 1912. So they'll go back and put, as they research and find people that deserve to be on that wall there in Washington. But this year, we have David Smith Payne with Chandler, Arizona PD. His end of watch was 10/31/2014. One recently kind of hit home was Tyler Jacob Stewart there in Flagstaff, Arizona, 12/27/2014. A friend of mine that passed away here very recently was Ernest Jesus Montoya Sr., Navajo Division of Public Safety, 11/30/2014. You have John Thomas Hobbs with Phoenix PD, March 3rd, 2014. And then you have Jer Cabrera with Salt River Indian Tribal Police, 5/24/2014. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 people in the state of Arizona this year.
I know I work out at the Sholo City Gym, and outside in the hallway, they put up a poster of every officer that dies, and it seems like every week or 2, there's a new poster that gets put up of some officer who's passed away in the line of duty. You guys know that, but yet you put on the badge and the gun every day and still go out. What motivates you to do that? How can you do that?
Since World War II was the last time that our country experienced fewer than 100 law enforcement officers related deaths, in the line of duty deaths. We haven't seen numbers like that. Every year since then has been over 100. And it's one of those risk factors that you have to accept that goes with the job. You know, what we do isn't what a soldier does, but yet when a man or a woman enlists in the military, they understand the risk and the consequences. But with us, it's, you know, we understand too that there are risks and there are consequences that go along with your action. But yet those people that are drawn into the profession, you know how to work around them. Those that aren't able to work around them, you know, they're eliminated in the training process or in the field training to understand that it's inherently a dangerous job. And if a person doesn't understand or accept the danger, then they need to really take a serious consideration on why they're here.
You know,
it can't be avoided. It just cannot be avoided. With what we do, you know, we're the only profession in this country that you put on a vest and a gun when you go to work every day.
You know, and that's what I was going to talk about, Larry, is that it's true. Our men and women in the service, where my son's serving and other family members, it takes a great amount of courage to do that and fight for your country. But they do that for 3 years, 4 years, and it's terrible circumstances. But I think you said 36 years you've been putting on a vest and a gun, go to
Correct.
work every day. This says a lot about a man or a woman.
And I can understand that you guys have a calling and it's what you do. How does it affect your families? Your wives, your children? Because they must have stress too, knowing that when you go out, they may not see you that night when you're supposed to come home.
There's the stress of that, not knowing whether you're coming home or not, but there's also the stress that they feel every day is the shift work, the missing of birthdays, holidays, vacation, seeing the change in us. I know every officer that I've known, when you see them when they first come through the door as a brand new recruit, and you see them as they go through their career, we all change. We all change, some for the better, some not for, but there's a change, and that affects the family life so much. Upon, with what you said, that there's always that fear that you may not come home that night.
And there's a high divorce rate in law enforcement. There's a high suicide rate because it takes its toll on you. You're seeing things that no human should have to see repeatedly over and over. Highway patrol, going to the accidents where children are literally slaughtered on the side of the highway. It takes its toll. We were, just last week I was talking with our chief, and we were kind of in cop humor making fun of something, and there was somebody that looked at us, and I'm like, it's cop humor, it's how we deal with this stuff. And it's kind of macrame, but it's just how we, because it does change you. You see enough deaths or enough people murdered or beat up or burnt, whatever, it starts changing you.
I know, Casey, both you and Larry have done undercover work, and I don't know if you have, Ron.
No, I haven't.
But I also know, just from being with you, Casey, that a number of years ago you had a threat against you and your family that they were coming to your home. How do you guys deal with that type of stuff? And how does your family deal with that?
It's part of the stress. That's happened several times, and you sit up all night with a gun. That's what you do. Yeah, it's, I have
But it's one thing to put your own life on the line and know you're doing it, but to have your family sucked into it must really pull at some part of your heart and your gut and your soul.
You do. Usually your significant other kind of knows what you're doing, and you talk about it. At home, I didn't really let my kids know. I didn't want them involved in it. But I have some fans at DOC that sent me a letter on Christmas. He wrote the letter, and it's like, yeah, that's coming.
2 words, Merry Christmas.
Right.
Did you ever have any threats to you or your family, Larry, when you were doing your undercover work?
In the undercover work,
Or even your in uniform
I
work?
was in MNCAT here in Sholo, where we worked several significant cases at the time. We were involved in the Brockbank case, Dr. Brockbank, about 10 years ago when we took him out of service here in town. And with me, I'd never made it personal, and I've never received anything personal back as far as a threat is concerned, other than when you're arresting the impaired driver, they say they want to get you and that they're gonna kill you and they'll find out where you live. And I heard that, but I accepted it. I didn't like it, but I just accepted it. In the highway patrol, we have the misfortune of having take-home cars. Everybody knows where you live. I spent my entire career in small towns from Yuma to Springerville and stationed in Holbrook now. I'm not in a town fewer than a week, and everybody knows where I live, and I accept that. Now there are precautions that I do take that I don't think would be prudent to actually say on the air what the cautions are, but it's preparedness, and it's just something that you understand when you come into this profession. It comes with it. It will follow you.
And you bring up a good point there. That's another thing that I don't think a lot of the people understand. The precautions that you take, we all take those, and a lot of times when we're out with our family and we're at a restaurant or wherever, we're always on the edge looking to see. An example I used, we arrested some folks with a motorcycle club in Phoenix, and I'm sitting in a restaurant with my wife, and 3 of them walk in. Now, luckily, nothing happened, but there was a moment that I thought, you know, are we going to get through the appetizer, or are things going to happen? So those are some of the extra stressors that you have, plus sometimes your family will or may get involved because of off-duty actions that present themselves that you have to act upon.
You know, when you go in a restaurant or you go somewhere, I know that when I first walk in the restaurant or whatever, I always look for a seat that's to my advantage. It's just things you start doing, whether you're at a store shopping or you're just always looking. So that's a good point, which is, again, it's stress, constant.
Well, if you've ever seen a painting of the Last Supper with Christ, that's kind of how law enforcement is everybody's sitting with their back against the wall and looking at the front door. That just goes with the territory that you understand that's what you have to do. You have to maintain a vigilance about you, but yet not letting it get to the point where paranoia sinks in with it. It's one of those things that, like I said, that is hound to us from the academy, that this is some of the inherent dangers that come with your career choice.
You know, in today's world, of course, there's got all this video now that's part of law enforcement. But I think a lot of that is that there's a lot of focus on law enforcement, and there's bad eggs, bad apples. But for the most part, if you look at the tens of thousands of law enforcement officers around the country, around the world, it's a good bunch of folks. What people see now is what we do. And a few years ago, they didn't, because there was no video. And a lot of what we do is not pretty. And it's a tough business, and a lot of people, just counted on us coming there to fix it, and they didn't really see what we did. And in today's world, with the video cameras, everybody kind of sees it now. But what the media doesn't show is all the good things that every one of us have in our departments and around the country.
Absolutely.
That every day, some police officer somewhere, hundreds, thousands of them do great things.
In the law enforcement community nationwide, there's over 800,000 peace officers in this country. Next to the military, we have the second most highest rated public trust factor of any profession in this country. And speaking of the fact that what people can see what it is and how it can be ugly when the arrest comes into place, I can think of a comparison with the Vietnam War. It was the first war that was televised to this country, and it was one of those things that actually was a turning point, in this country, with the support for that one, because people could see it. When you have to see what has to go on the Fridays and the Saturday nights, and some of the bars and some of the alleys and some of the crap hole places that they are in this country, that the law enforcement officer is compelled to respond to, and he has to, because people have called us 911. They make the phone call for us to respond, and then when you go inside there's ugly things that's going on there. There's ugly people in this world, people that do harm to other folks, and our job is to intervene inside there and put a stop to these type of situations, these transgressions that can go on against somebody for public safety's sake. And do we do it right all the time? No, but nobody is right 100% of the time.
Right.
So we have to accept our fallacies, but be able to move on with it and learn from it and to train from it. When somebody does make a mistake, we're the first one to point it out, to put it out there, to let the people see this is exactly what happens, and then the courts, also judge us in what we do. The citizens have an action for a tort. They're able to take us into court if they think that they've had a violation of their civil rights. They have that option in this country, something that we give them, where we get that opportunity to present our side, they present their side, and then an independent party, the judge, will take a ruling on it, and we accept the ruling. And if
Not only the judge, but the jury. It's a jury of our peers.
Yes, sir.
Total for has either one of you ever been back to the Police Memorial Week in Washington, D.C.?
Not for the week. I've visited the memorial, but I've never been back there for the week.
Well, Sheriff, thanks to your help, when I was at the FBI National Academy in 2009, I was there during Law Enforcement Memorial Week, the week of May 15th, and I attended the Law Enforcement Memorial Service that was presented by our guest speaker, the Attorney General of the United States, Mr. Eric Holder. So it was quite the experience for me, quite the moving experience to see officers from across this country and with their families and with the blue lights, with the candles that were displayed. It is one thing to watch it on the television, one thing to read about it in a law enforcement magazine. It was an entirely different feeling for me that when I actually seen that, you can get a greater appreciation for the brotherhood, for the sisterhood that actually does exist in the law enforcement community.
And you know, one officer dies, it's an officer, but there's a whole family behind him. I mean, of brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins, and when you go to that memorial, there's thousands of people there that have been affected by this.
Did we do anything here in Navajo County on the Law Enforcement Memorial Week to help acknowledge and celebrate the lives and careers of those who have died?
In Pine Top Lakeside, we're having a proclamation read by the mayor, Mayor Williams, and also during that week, we have ordered these wristbands that are similar to shrouds that are worn during a officer death, and all our officers will be issued these, and they'll be wearing them between May 11th and 15th.
For the state, I'll let the sheriff speak what happens here in his county. For the state of Arizona, for DPS, we have an officer memorial at our headquarters down in Phoenix, near the state capitol, near the fairgrounds on McDowell. The agency itself will have a memorial, like I said, for the 29 officers, the DPS officers that are on the wall at our office, and then also there's a memorial at the Western Bowling Plaza at the state capitol, which we will participate in along with the other agencies from the valley.
You know, the Navajo County Sheriff's Office, we did send our honor guard back a few years ago to the national, and they participated there. We always participate at the state, and then Sheriff Arpaio also does a memorial there in front of his office that we'll participate in. Here in Navajo County, one of the things that we started last year with all the partners in our county, and is the fundraiser for the 100 Club of Arizona.
Let people know what that 100 Club is, Casey.
The 100 Club of Arizona was founded back in the 70s, I believe. And so what happens with the 100 Club is immediately if an officer is injured or a firefighter injured or killed, the 100 Club comes in immediately and gives them a check to help with, if it happens to be burial expenses. They'll fly family out to funeral services. They will help with some medical expenses. They'll rent a house for you for family members if your loved one's from the rural area and is in the hospital for quite some time. It's an incredible organization that comes together for the police officers here in the state of Arizona. So we last year we did our first annual fundraiser. It was a huge success. We had almost every partner in the county there, and we raised real close to $8,000 that we were able to turn over. Everything was donated, so there's no, there was nobody taking any kind of costs out of it.
No overhead. So when is it this year and where?
So this year it's going to be Saturday, May 9th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's going to be there at the same place as last year, Lowe's Parking. And Lowe's been a great partner and giving up their parking lot for that. There's going to be, we'll have, just like last year, raffles, giveaways. Last year you were in the dunk tank. And
As were you.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, people wanted to dunk me more than you because I couldn't get out of the dang thing. So we're looking for volunteers, Ron.
But at the 100 Club, we're going to have hot dogs and hamburgers you can buy that help support the cause. So bring your family out for lunch. We have the raffles. We have McGruff, the crime dog. We have other events and booths set up that deal with the different law enforcement and firefighter groups. We'll have cars, trucks, SWAT trucks I think we had last year.
Helicopters.
It's a lot of fun for the whole family, and it is a very worthwhile cause. Hopefully we'll never have to call for the 100 Club here in Navajo County, but it's nice to know they're there in case we ever do have that need. And unfortunately, time has run out. It's gone very quickly, and I'd like to thank both of you gentlemen for joining us
Thank you, sir.
today.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Ron. It's always a pleasure.
And I'd
Casey,
like
thank
to
you.
thank all of you for joining us for this session of Shooting Straight with Brad and Casey.